Welcome back, Chapter 6. As Etta looked into her sister's eyes, what she felt most strongly was a sense of urgency. Yes, these were dreams, but there was something odd about them. She hadn't told Henry, but she looked at every photo she could find in his house. None of them had a picture of a Bronte sampler. She hadn't seen it until he showed it to her, but yet she had seen it. Above all, she didn't want to think about Wyatt Earp, who may or may not have existed. Etta was beginning to believe there was a deeper reason for the dreams. She didn't know if the purpose was about her own life or someone she loved. You said that, Auntie. And that had come to include Henry. But there was something she was supposed to achieve. Are you all right? Alice asked. Since the core of her body was encased in an iron-clad torture device, Etta struggled to sit up. I'm well. I guess today was a bit much for me. So the wedding did happen? Alice sounded eager. She was very pretty even with no makeup and furry eyebrows. Her skin glowed with youth and good health. She was probably early 20s? Yes, married, witnessed, signed. Alice let out a breath exactly like Alicia did when she solved the problem. We are now truly sisters? We are indeed. I feel like I've known you all my life. Alice smiled. Max said my letters to you were too long and told too much, but it was so nice to have someone to talk to. Immediately, Etta's hair stood on end. He doesn't allow you to have friends? He? You mean Max? Of course I have friends, as many as I want. She got up from her chair, picked up her cane, and went to the doorway. Esmeralda? Could we have some tea, please? She looked back at Etta. Are you hungry? I told Max to take some food, but he didn't. It took you two a long while to get here. Etta was trying not to stare, but she really wanted to know why Alice was limping. Was it a disease? Something that in the 21st century could be cured with a few pills? Or was it an injury? Alice sat back down. I see Max didn't tell you. I was born with a twisted foot. He has always made me comfortable, and now I have you. Etta thought that it sounded like a lonely existence, but she just smiled. Minutes later, an old woman came in bearing a tray loaded with pretty teapot and cups. Etta realized that old was relative. The woman was probably in her 50s. Young in modern times. She didn't smile or show any emotions. Thank you, Alice said, and they watched her shuffle out of the room. She may not show it, but she's very glad you're here. As Alice poured the tea, she lowered her voice. Esmeralda has been with me since I was a baby. She cooks for us, but... Not very well? Alice nodded. She very much wants to go home. Where is that? Mexican town, Alice said. All her family lives there, and a lot of Mac's men. Etta finished a cup of tea, then wrestled herself up off the hard couch. Would you show me around? She paused as she made a discovery. Having your insides compressed to the size of a toddler's didn't allow you to store much. She had to pee. Could I use your... Of course, I should have thought. Please don't let it be a chamber pot under the bed, she thought. She followed Alice through the house to her beautiful glassed-in room. Alice opened the door at the end. There was a little path disappearing through the trees. It's just mine, Alice said proudly. Max had it made for me. Etta followed the path to an outhouse. It was, of course, hideous. There was a that's a word. Hold on. I don't know what it means. Okay. Seat around a hole above sewage. It took Etta a while to deal with her undergarments. She couldn't pull them down, but had to part the overlapping fabric of the crouch. It wasn't easy. Elastic, she murmured. How I miss you. On the floor was a stack of newspaper. Triple ply, she thought. The heading read April 10th, 1870. It looked like Henry had been accurate about the date. Relieved, she went back to the house. Alice was Did she use newspaper? Alice was eagerly awaiting her. She had the same lonely, needy expression Alicia wore when she'd been stuck in the house alone for a few days. It was exactly how she looked after their mother died, and Etta said she was returning to the university. Because of that look, Etta didn't go. She ran her hand over a palm in a big pot. Your brother said Cornelia designed this room for you. I guess you two were friends? We were, Alice sighed. She's very entertaining, but she and Max fought all the time. He showed her his ear. He showed me his ear. Alice smiled. Cornelia does have a temper. She gave Etta a sideways look. I doubt if she was nice to you. No, she wasn't. She needs a Ben to calm her down. Someone quiet like Henry. Alice's eyes were wide. You do talk strangely. I guess that's all your education. Why don't we get you some different clothes? Max likes pretty women. I could never look as good as Cornelia. None of us can. They laughed together, then Etta spoke. I'm more interested in you. You're so isolated here. I know you sew and read, but what else? Alice went to a chair on the far side. In a frame was her sampler with a Bronte quote. I'm almost done with this. Don't finish it, Etta said quickly. It's When We Met. Leave it as is. So Martha can do it, she thought. All right, she hesitated. May I show you a secret? Of course. The end of the glass house was so thick with foliage that the light was blocked. Alice slipped between two big palms and motioned for Etta to squeeze in beside her. Outside was the barn she'd seen earlier, and there was a horse trough. Nice view, Etta said, started to turn away. Just wait. They stood in silence for a few minutes. Then a couple of young cowboys led their horses out. They dipped their hats into the water and poured it over their bodies, wetting their shirts. They looked very, very good. Etta gave a snort of laughter. It's a wet shirt contest. What a perfect name. They have no idea they're being watched. One of the cowboys was exceptionally good-looking and muscular. For a brief second, he cut his eyes towards the house. Like hell they don't know. Etta pushed the palms aside and waited for Alice to leave the show and sit down. Your brother says someone who worked for you ran off with his head wrangler. Yeah, that was Julie. Max was very angry. He liked her? Oh no, that was when he and Cornelia were together. Max liked Joe, but Julie saw him at the horse show, and that was the end of her. She was gone the next day. I got a letter from her, and they're in California in the mountains. It's a hard life. And now pretty Alice was drooling over the wet cowboys. Etta couldn't imagine her with her limp trying to survive in the mountains. There was no electricity here. There wouldn't even be roads in the mountains, or protection from bears and other predators. Etta wondered if this was her purpose here. Was she to do what she told Henry and find a Philip for Alice? Get her out of her pretty prison? Between us, is there someone you like? Alice ducked her head shyly. Well, there was a man. I went into town with Max. In the buggy, he let me off at a dressmaker and picked me up there. Inadvertently, Etta glanced down at Alice's foot, hidden under yards of silk. It was Etta's guess that Alice wasn't to be seen limping down the dirty streets. Was that her preference or a decree by her brother? And, Etta said encouragingly, he was fixing a wagon hitch. He was very nice looking, and you wanted to rip his clothes off, Etta thought, just like my sister felt when she saw her future husband. But Alice was too innocent to hear that. Was he one of your brother's men? Or does he work for Cornelia's father? Oh, no. Max said he's a lawyer. He's new to town. A lawyer? Etta thought about her brother-in-law, Philip. He could talk and he was smart. Had he grown up in a more prosperous family, he could have been a lawyer. That this man was working with his hands was also like Philip. Dark hair, tall, shoulders. She held out her hand wide. Ah, yes, Alice said in a dreamy way. Your brother said women who came here get married quickly. What about eligible men? It's worse with them. There isn't a lot of choice in men. I mean, ones who are up to snuff. Women go after the good ones right away. I can understand that. This guy has a lucrative job and he probably doesn't drink his whole paycheck every Saturday. And I suspect that he takes a bath in something besides a horse trough. Sounds top notch to me. Alice giggled. You are funny. Now I see why Max kept you out so long. He promised to bring you straight home, but he didn't. She cocked her head. Did he take you to the old homestead? Yes, he did. Alice was quiet for a moment. He thinks no one knows about that place, but we all do. Everyone stays away from it and lets him have his peace. He said that if I stay here a year, he'll build me a house on that land. Alice was so astonished she couldn't speak. I'm sure he would have said that to anyone he married, especially since the house and land were a substitute for the real marriage he wasn't going to give her. That's not true, Alice said. Max liked your letters best. Were there a lot of choices in women? Alice laughed. Oh, yeah. I'm the one who put the advertisement in the Kansas City magazine. He wasn't happy that I did it, but if I hadn't done something drastic, he was going to end up marrying Cornelia. They would have killed each other. So, as Max said, I offered him up a little prize bull with a ring of rose around his neck. Etta laughed. And he got a lot of bidders? Alice was laughing in memory. Many of them, women from 16 to 41. I was the compromise, the middle choice. None of them had been to school for as long as you, Alice said in a placiding way. But that didn't matter because no one could compare to the divine Miss Cornelia. So he settled for me. Alice looked puzzled. I guess so. She changed the subject. So, what shall we do this afternoon? I can get Max to send someone for the dressmaker. I think you should wear green. Etta stood up. I need to talk to him. Where is he? Out wrestling cows, branding them or whatever. He's in his office. Of course he is. He wanted to be nearby in case you call for help. Did something bad happen between you and Max? Nothing whatsoever happened between your brother and me. Didn't happen and never will. He made that clear. I have a purpose here, and I don't think it has anything to do with him, or with me for that matter. Point me in the right direction, please. Alice didn't go with Etta to her brother's office. Is she afraid of him? Etta wondered. Or was she dreading what looked to be an argument? Alicia, the peacemaker, always intervened when harsh words were spoken. When Etta got to his office, the first thing she saw was Henry's giant desk, but there was no carving on the front of it. The sight of it threw her for a moment. Sampler, jacket, desk, all bought at an auction. Was it from a descendant of the man who was sitting behind the desk, or from Alice? Did she marry some cowboy who looked good in a wet shirt? Or the new lawyer? Do you need something? He was looking at her with a frown, as though she was a great bother to him. My wedding day, she thought in sarcasm. The way I always imagined it. Ha ha. The men were right that he worked her hard. I want you to invite the lawyer to dinner tonight. And who would that be? I don't know his name, to be honest. Tall, dark, handsome. Arrived only recently. Are there many lawyers in town? His expression showed that he seemed to be wondering if she was insane or not. He looked back at the papers on the desk. I can't go. I have to work. I have work to do. She went to stand on the other side of the desk. She thought that if she wanted him to do something for her, she should soften her tone. Those are the accounts? He looked at her. You want to do them? No, sorry. I didn't inherit that ability. You should get Dad to do them. Pastor Tobias. He looked amused. Get the preacher to add and subtract? The man can't even make people believe they should stop sinning. If his father hadn't, she didn't like hearing her father's disparage. How would you be as a preacher? The best, he shot back. I'd serve beer. She didn't want him to see her laugh, so she turned away, recovered, then looked back at him. I think you and I want the same thing. Alice can't spend her whole life locked away in a room, not even one as pretty as that one. She needs a life. Do you agree, or do you like having her under your rule? I got married for her, didn't I? Okay. His words were a metaphoric slap. At least it was out in the open. Deflated, she plopped down on a hard wooden chair. Did these people hate all things that were soft? Alice saw a young lawyer in town, and she was attracted to him. He looked blank. The man who was fixing a wagon hitch? Oh yeah, Bertram Lloyd. She asked me about him. And you didn't take the hint? She didn't wait for him to answer. You need to invite him to dinner. I want him and Alice to meet. All right, I'll come up with some legal work, hire him, get to know him. Then maybe I'll let him meet her. Forget all that. You can get to know him at dinner tonight. You sure are bossy. If you wanted a submissive girl, you should have married the 16-year-old who applied for the job. At last, we agree on something. She felt like defending herself. You wanted a woman with an education, and I'm what you got. Not that it matters, but I had to become bossy. I run everything so my father and sister can do what they need to do with their lives. If you're so necessary, girl, get the word out. If you are so necessary to them, why are you here? The lockdown. She didn't know how to answer that in a believable way. He gave a smug little smile. They're doing fine without you, aren't they? She did not like that he turned the tables on her. She needed to go back to why she was there. She clenched her teeth. Trust me on this. You don't have time to meet and judge the man. Before you even get started, he'll be swept up by some girl with rough cheeks, and Alice would end up in California, in the California mountains. You make no sense. Could you leave now? I need to finish this. Her frustration was taking over. She stood up. With your dyslexics, it'll take days. Hire the preacher, test him. What do you have to lose? She didn't know how to get him to do what was needed. Then she thought, how about showing him what I saw? His office was facing the back, as Alice's room was, but it wasn't in direct view of the stables. She flung open the door. I want to show you something. I don't have time for this, he said. I have to, yeah, I know. Adding up numbers that sometimes look backward is more important than your sister's raging hormones. Are you afraid to see what your men are up to? My men. At last, he left his chair and went to the door with her. Etta led the way outside. There was a long stack of firewood at the back, and she directed him to look over it. When he saw nothing, he turned back to her in annoyance. Just wait, she said, repeating Alice's words. She stayed back, but she saw his expression when the men started doing their magic Mike act. He didn't watch for long. When he shouted, it was so loud as a dozen trumpets. He didn't say any words as he seemed too angry to enunciate them. But the men knew what the sound was. Get back to work. And if you put on a show for my sister again, I'll feed you to the hogs. Or thereabouts, Etta thought. Did a cattle rancher have pigs? When he turned around, he didn't look at her, but stomped back into his office. Etta followed close behind him. So, who's the really handsome guy, she asked. The one with the muscles. Bet he makes the hearts of all the women flutter. He certainly does a number on Alice. Maybe she'll be like Julie and elope with him, and they can live in a tent high in the mountains. But I'm sure she'll send you letters. That'll be nice. Turning, he glowered down at her with a scowl that looked like the wrath of Thor. But he didn't scare Etta. She stood her ground, put her hands on her tightly bound waist, and glared right back up at him. After a full minute, he turned away and went to sit behind his desk, his head bent over the papers. Dinner tonight? She asked with exaggerated innocence. The lawyer? Or should I invite the handsome cowboy? Dinner, he growled. Smiling, Etta left the room. She had a lot of work to do to prepare a nice meal. What was in the kitchen? She hoped she wouldn't have to cook over an open fire. She could, but it wasn't easy. And what food was available besides beef and beans? That is, if she had yeast, she could bake bread. She hurried back to Alice's room, who cooked for the cowboys. Who cooked for the cowboys? He'd know what was available. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 6. Really, there's really not much to talk about in this chapter. She's back in a dream. She's trying to get Alice, aka Alicia, married off or together. And I think she's learning how her husband is to be treated, manipulated. I don't know. It's one of those. But yeah, really not much to talk about. It's still a cute story. Let me think. Anything else? Did I come across anything else in this book? Oh, there was one word that I don't know, and I know I jacked up. So stay tuned for the definition portion. So until that video, I'll be back. Okay, welcome back to the definition portion of this video. The word is spelled Rudimentary. And this is how it is pronounced.
Rudimentary.
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 Rudimentary. It's an adjective involving or limited to basic principles. In the sentence, it says, there was a rudimentary seat around a hole above open sewage. Okay, there we have it. So until the next chapter, bye for now.